Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm 𝗤𝘃𝗀𝗀𝗃, licensed agent with Second City Real Estate. And with me, as always, is owner, principal, and founder of 𝗤𝘃𝗱𝗰𝗀𝗀, 𝗬𝘃 Mark, I just gave you a grandiose intro there. What is the craziest property management thing that has happened to you recently?
Well, I'm happy to say it didn't happen to me, but when this airs, I'm sure we'll have some more pictures and we could put this out there. But I've been, a lot of times Chicago investors, they reach out to me, whether it be through the podcast or just different networks. And I was coaching this guy along of how to get somebody out of his, a tenant out of his place. And I think he had a place in Edgewater or Rogers Park, somewhere up there. And I've been walking along, you can see the trail of text for 6-7 months. And I got the text the other day. He's like, I got him out, but they destroyed my place. And, everyone uses kind of that definition, destroy your place, very loosely. It's very, everyone's got their different view of what destroyed is, especially if you manage on the south side versus suburbs. So I'm like, all right, that's fine. I can connect to the contract. I mean, like, how bad? And this guy sends me over pictures. And I will admit, this is the worst I have ever seen in my, going on 20 years now, almost career of like, holy cow, like that's not made up. Like they literally took, they must've taken a roller of paint and painted everything. Like they painted the hardwood floors. They painted like through the bathroom. They ripped out, they literally ripped out cabinets. I mean, the pictures are crazy. Now, I referred this to our friend RJ DeLeon over there and his construction firm. I'm like, man, you have to take this job just for the experience of saying that you rehab something like this. So pretty crazy story. When the day this comes out, if we forget, someone could tag us, but I'll post some of these pictures, man. I won't name the landlord, but craziest pictures I've seen ever. Outside of just something you Google up, that's in some other world that is totally disconnected. So I'm just grateful that we haven't inherited anything like that, nor have we definitely not placed anything like that. So it was kind of crazy.
Man, fun stuff, right? I thought this was supposed to be a nice, easy, passive thing we do here.
Yeah, no. The property manager thing, we were hiring somebody today, or we're interviewing somebody to hire today. And I said, as much as we try to make this industry predictable or be ready, prepared for it, there's still that kind of 40 to 50% responsive that you have to be at every single day. You can't prepare for most of the stuff that gets thrown our way.
Yeah. The silver lining. And I feel for this guy, right? That's a terrible position to be in. To the general statement, though, of being ready, the silver lining there is that that's a chance to shine, right? When there's an issue and you can come in and solve it immediately and just diffuse the situation, the tenant's never going to say oh my God, thank you. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But you just build up that trust, step by step of the way. Every time there's an obstacle, if you look at it as an opportunity, the mind shift just changes a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's stay along the track here. What's the housing provider tip of the week?
Well, housing provider tip of the week, I'm going to, I don't know how these episodes will air in order, but in a recent episode, we had a guest that mentioned he's a realtor, and he mentioned he can't believe it kills him when he sees somebody go by in a condo building that's got rental restrictions. They might be owner occupied, but they're like, I'm going to live there now. I'm not going to rent it. But it's so true. You have to take all these things into consideration. And even his point was don't buy in an HOA that doesn't allow rentals. And I will even go further and say, make sure you investigate the caps. A lot of these HOAs have caps in them. Maybe they only allow 20%, or, understand if you had to rent this place out 6 months now because your life changed, or it makes sense to rent out as an investment. Understand what you're up against. I think a lot of people lose, and a lot of people are unfavorable towards townhouses and condos because they are not favorable in, or really even predictable sometimes when it comes to some of these laws. And keep in mind, HOAs and townhouses, they might be professionally managed, but the board is usually made up of just everyday citizens that don't always really look down the road or understand real estate or look at values or understand values. So
good stuff. All right, Mark, today, this is a good one. We're talking about affordable housing. We're talking about development. We're, 2 or 3 topics here that we've covered, never in one episode though. So we're putting it all together with today's guest.
And a super smart guy too. Just by looks, he's super smart, man. So,
Mark's saying that because before our guest had on a hoodie, he realized it was live. He went and put on his company t-shirt. We've been joking that, man, he just got so much smarter. So
I'd feel uncomfortable if he put glasses on, it was just up it to another level.
I'm going to go find a pair.
So today's guest, principal and CEO of Connex, Basically, we live in a city of Chicago here that's desperately in need of more affordable housing. The vast majority of residential lots are the exact same size. His company is asking the question, why is modular housing not available? Before Connects oversaw a $25 million portfolio of real estate in Chicago. Also ran Braun Renovation Management, a design-built firm specialized in renovation and remodeling. And without further ado, Josh Braun, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Awesome, Tom, Mark, great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We were excited to have you, and I left out you were a referral from Judy Freeland, who is also on episode 104, one of our better episodes. If you haven't listened to that one, go back and take a swing. So Josh, the Connect story is just phenomenal. There's a lot of articles written about you guys. So many cool things to talk about. Before we get there, talk about how did you get into real estate? What was step one here, and we'll go from there.
So my background, actually, I got to comment on Mark's opening story about the tenant who destroyed. I got to go off on a slight tangent to answer your question.
Go for it. My background.
So my family's background is I'm third generation real estate in Chicago. So my grandfather was a real estate attorney, and he started the business. And I literally started ground up, full on 16-year-old. I was a janitor for the building, literally cleaning buildings, that kind of stuff. And I will never forget. At one point, my family had nothing to do with this building anymore. We were taking care of a building that was over in Portage Park. And we had a very strict rule, the tenants were not allowed to paint the apartments. It was this was back in 1992 or something or 93. And so it was a super, super strict rule. And we go in, we do annual inspections. So we walk into the apartment, and the woman had painted floor to ceiling, wall to wall, the biggest mural in an apartment I've ever seen, of the Grim Reaper holding a baby. And it was it was myself, my mom, because it was a true family business, and the property manager, and we're doing inspections. And my mom, who's a pretty easygoing lady, and it takes a lot to get her to not talk. She just stood there staring at the wall, looking at me, looking at the property manager, looking at the wall for 5 minutes. She was trying to digest what she had been seeing. And can you guys see me? You can see me. So it was literally a picture of the Grim Reaper, hand out, holding a baby, pointing like this. And the mural, no joke, the apartment had 9-foot ceilings. The wall was 12 feet wide. It was the creepiest thing I'd ever seen in my life inside someone's apartment. So I don't know, Mark, if that's not quite your story, but this is 25, 30 years ago. I guess at this point it was more 30 years ago. And I'll never forget it, because I was who the hell, who would put that up on their wall?
Well, what did you do? Did you make them remove it, or did you kick her eye? I got to hear that part.
No. It's just one of those, I guess we'll have to paint over it when they leave. That's all you can do.
That's so crazy. I'd almost have to consider man, should we keep this? The
funny thing is, it was really good. It wasn't a crappy drawing either. It was actually a really good version of the Grim Reaper. The shroud, the skull face, the baby. It was creepy.
Everyone listening here just went to go update their leases to make sure that they had that caveat in there, do not allow tenant not allowed to paint in the unit.
Well, one more side tangent. We had a building in Bronzeville, and somebody came and painted a beautiful mural. I'd say beautiful. It was tasteful, I guess. And it was they did it, and we're let's just leave it. But then 2 weeks later, somebody else came and painted another one. And then 2 weeks later, someone else painted. We actually had to get security cameras out there, because as the artwork went on, it kept getting crappier. So it's the original is good, but either this guy is bringing his friends who are still apprentices, or we got to I don't know.
You guys should just get a round table. You could get a whole bunch of property managers together and just do the craziest property management stories ever. That's the most entertaining thing when I got together with guys who are property management guys. I realize we're not here to talk about that, but sorry, that's my background.
We have thought about that, but we were scared it would turn into a complaining fest. So we come on.
The line. We had someone who came to rent an apartment, and when she asked, the building had an elevator, and we were like, well, no, but she's like, oh, I have a 3-legged cat. Dead serious, by the way. Can't make that stuff up. So so that's how I get my background. I got into real estate. Basically as a kid, I started working in the family business, dealing with real estate. We had buildings on almost all of our buildings are predominantly on the north side of the building, on the north side of the city. And just, it was really cool. Like, driving around, really involved in the buildings. I learned how to fix stuff. I learned how to take apart a complete steam boiler and put the whole thing back together. And then slowly but surely, when I was in like my late 20s, people, like friends, people I knew, they were constantly calling me like, hey, can you fix this? Can you fix that? How do I fix this? How do I fix that? And one day, a good friend of mine was like, hey, you should like maybe be a general contractor. And I was like, oh, I guess so. I hadn't really thought anything of it. And so that's kind of how Braun Renovation Management came about. And I started out, like, it was legitimately started as a side hustle. Like, I was like, if I can make $500 a month, I was going to be happy. And my first year, I blew it out of the water. It was so much fun. I had a blast being a general contractor. And so it just got bigger and bigger, and the project got bigger and bigger. And I started, went from like helping people renovate bathrooms to I built a couple of single family homes. I did a bunch of commercial stuff. I renovated a couple larger buildings. And essentially at some point I connected with 𝗤𝘃𝗃𝗵𝗁 through someone I know. And Paul and he helped me out with a project. And I got to say this. So my cousin who worked for 𝗖𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀𝘁 Partners, have you guys familiar with 𝗖𝗵𝗃 Partners? Jeff developed like most of the West Loop. So my cousin was head of construction, and my cousin said recently, he doesn't work for Jeff anymore. He's moved away. But at the time, my cousin had actually planted the seed about modular construction. He was telling me articles and he thought it was so cool. And so I started talking to Paul one day, 𝗤𝘃𝗃𝗵𝗁, who's one of my partners, the architect. And we're on a project site that we're working with. And I'm like, what's the story with modular? I'm like, the whole city's like 70 to 80% like rectangular lots. Like, they're perfect for Legos. Like, why wouldn't you just start like doing it? And Paul was like, I don't know. Like, it was literally like one of those little, like, just like, I don't know, like, why not? And Paul ironically did his architectural master's thesis in shipping container structures. So we started having a bunch of conversations, and our big joke is Connect started with sugar packets. So Paul and I started our first sort of like formal meeting of Connects before it was even Connects. We literally met for coffee at 𝗤𝘃𝗃𝗵𝗁, and the whole thing started with like sugar packets on a table. We started taking sugar packets and like moving them around and trying to decide like what that would look like. And we decided like randomly to reach out to the building department, because like I'm too stupid to like everyone you talk to modular was like, oh, I met with housing and I met with planning and I contacted the mayor's office, and all I know about was building. So like I contacted the building department because I was like, well, the building department won't let you build it, then what's the point? So we got connected with the building department, somehow I got connected with Deputy Commissioner 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and we got a bunch of people in a room with the building department. And to this day, I have no idea how I got all these people together in a room. It was like, there was like 3 deputy commissioners, someone from transportation, someone from like building. It was all building department people, but there was like at least 6 or 8 people in this room that came in. They're like, oh, you want to talk about modular housing? And we were like, sure. So they all sit down. I remember this woman like throws down the Chicago Building Code book and she slaps it on the table and she's like, this is Chicago Building Code. You better make sure you follow it. We're not going to give you any waivers. Don't ask for anything. Don't deviate from it. If you can't build to this, like, don't bother building here. I'm sort of paraphrasing, but that's basically what. So Paul and I were like, okay, right? Like, we're both Chicago people. Like, we believe in Chicago. We were like, yeah, like, what do we know? Like, we were too stupid to like think of any other way to do it. So we were like, great. So we started. We started playing around, and am I going too far down the rabbit hole? Should I stop talking so you can ask questions?
No, keep going, man. Well, let's hear
it. So we were like literally like two dudes who just thought it'd be kind of cool to start playing around with it. And we started drawing some stuff, and we started playing around with some different ideas, and we connected with a couple of structural engineers. We designed it, and a bunch of the structural engineers were like, you're crazy. And a bunch of the people that I know in the real estate world were like, you're crazy. They're never going to let you build it. And we went back to the building department, and no, that's not what happened. So we couldn't figure out how to make the numbers work. This was back in 2016. And financially, like we had taken the idea of doing a modular, like a lot of the modular companies on the West Coast are doing like modular, but they're doing like high-end modular. There's like multiple companies that do some super nice stuff, like multi-million-dollar homes. So we had this whole idea to do it that way. And it like it didn't really make any money. I couldn't figure out how to make money out of it. It didn't make any sense. It was really expensive to get it up and running. So we kind of fell by the wayside. So fast forward like to 2018, I got a stop work order for some really stupid thing, neighbor, whatever, it doesn't matter. It was really dumb. And in order to get the stop work order removed, I had to call Deputy Commissioner 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏. And I'm like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you were that like crazy guy with that crazy idea. And, the stop work order, of course, was not an issue, and it was removed immediately. And he's like, whatever happened to the modular thing, though? That was really cool. And I was like, well, I couldn't get the numbers to work. It didn't make any sense. And he's like, well, have you thought about doing it like affordable? And I was like, I'm like, no, I hadn't thought about that. So he's like, well, why don't you see if you can figure it out that way? So Paul and I sat down, we totally like revamped. We had designed like this big modular home. Like it was big. It was like 25 or 3,500 square feet. It was like a big house. So we took the whole design, scrapped it, redid it, and like stripped it way down. I made it a lot smaller. And I called up Deputy Commissioner 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 again. I was like, hey, can I show this to you? He's like, yeah, come on in. So we came in and he showed it. He met with me and we met with a bunch of people, and we kept the same idea. Like, how do we build it to meet Chicago code? And then he's like, yeah, that looks pretty good. He's like, yeah, great. Let me know if you need, let me know if you guys want to do anything else. So then he connected us with Hal Hutchinson and Bob Fulstrom and Grant Ulrich, and they were like legitimately willing to like talk and listen and give feedback. And then we connected with, we kind of started shopping it around, and I connected with some family and friends who were like, we'll give you some money if you're willing to, if you can. Basically, we bootstrapped it. They were like, if you can get someone to buy your first one as a prototype, we'll give you some money. So I literally like shopped around and around and around, and I randomly got connected with the Resurrection Project, and they took like a massive leap of faith on us. And they were like, we're really committed to putting more housing, and the TRP is connected with Back of the Yards in Pilsen. They helped redevelop most of Pilsen, like late 90s. And so a lot of what Pilsen is today, TRP created that through a new housing initiative. And basically Raul Mundo, who runs it, we had a couple of meetings, and he was like, yeah, I'll take a leap of faith on you. And it was awesome. Raul was connected to the Mexican community. My dad originally is from Mexico. He immigrated here as a kid. And so I have a lot of connections to the Latin community. And so it was really nice for me. And so we literally rented a space, and we had this really, really cool landlord who was willing to kind of also help us out. And, he was also really excited. Oh, you're doing affordable housing? Like, that's really cool. Like, what can I help you do? And so we rented this space as a prototype space, and we literally started tinkering around. Like it was actually kind of cool. And then we were stupid enough to start a business right as the pandemic hit. So literally, like we signed our contract, signed a lease, and then the whole world like came to a halt. So perfect. Yeah, it was perfect. We were like, look, we actually had like a 3-week debate. We were like, so do we go forward? Do we not? And I was like, fuck it. Like, we already got the contract. We already got the lease. We raised some capital.
When in doubt, say yes.
Yeah, I was like, why not? I'm like, look, worst case scenario, we're going to come out of the pandemic and like we'll have built a modular home and given a new home to the community. And like, I'm like, what's the worst? Like, that's like worst case scenario, right? So,
Josh, let me stop you there because a lot of questions swimming in my head here.
Yeah.
I guess first comment, this is the first time I've heard something good coming out of a stop work order. So I'm glad we got it
was a really stupid reason. It was, for what it's worth, I guess this is recorded. So it was a really stupid reason. The neighbor had like called to complain because the permit in the window didn't match. There was an error on the permit. And the neighbor was pissed because we had started work at 8 a.m. and they were just pissed because we woke them up. And so the guy who came out from the city was like, I'm really sorry. I see your drawings and I see your permit. He's like, you got to go get someone to reset your permit to match what's on the drawing. Like there had just been an error on the permit. So he's like, go down to City Hall. And like literally within 5 minutes, it was like, yeah, I see it. Correction made. They handed back the permit. You're good to go. So that's what I'm saying. It was like a stupid reason.
I think that was one of our landlord tips in the past was make sure that the neighbors are on your side when you're doing projects.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yes. That is a good landlord tip. I can tell you for even when you're building a modular home, you want to make sure that the neighbors are on your side.
Tom, before you dive in, Tom, just want to reference you said Resurrection Project. We had Jack Crane on from CIC episode 45, and he's a board member, if I remember correctly, on Resurrection Project.
I think so. I don't know if I have to be honest. I don't know if he still is. I've met him though. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So how did, I want to go back to like the original models, like, 2,500 square feet, 3,500, whatever. That's not working. How did affordable work? Right. Cause I'm just thinking, forget about modular for a second. I'm just thinking about home building. Home builders keep going bigger and bigger and bigger because it's the only way to make profit. There's not enough entry level new homes being built across America. So how come like it's inverted here? How come it did work in your favor? Can you dive a little bit into like the economics there?
Well, I think, look, the reason why I'm going to answer you like from the backside. So the reason why I think there's not more affordable housing is because builders all work on a margin, right? I mean, everybody works on a margin, but affordable housing, or I think what I want to call, and Judy Friedland coined the phrase, I don't even want to take credit for it. Judy's the one that came up with it, is attainable housing. So workforce housing. And so the reason why nobody was building it is because if you go to true affordable, there's lots and lots of subsidies and there's all these things that, people are accessing, which is, low income housing. And then you have market rate, like high end market rate housing. And so where there's a much larger profit margin. So I think the reason why, if you're building a home for, $200,000 or $300,000, you're making a very small margin. And so you have to make more, you just have to make more of them, right? So modular, that's where modular starts to make sense, is like, if you can start to churn out, if you're building a home and you have, let's just call generously a 6-month build period, right? For a regular home, which is probably even long, short, probably 7, or I see Mark shaking his head. So maybe 7 months or even 8 months is more realistic. How many of those can you build at once, right? Like you could maybe build 8, right? Unless you bring in like an army of people, which today is like virtually impossible to even find that many people. Mm-hmm. So that's where modular starts to make sense, is it's just a matter of volume. So,
and let's even take it one step back for someone who's never heard the term modular. What define that? This is blowing my mind. I've never heard this. It's really
important. I want to thank you for asking that question, because it's very frustrating. So you have a mobile home, which is like, I think everyone can picture that. It's like an RV. You have a manufactured home, which the term manufactured home can really span a very large range of quality. Anything from like a manufactured home can be anything that's a mobile home that literally someone like sticks on blocks, to up to a pretty high. I mean, there's some relatively high quality manufactured homes. And then to me, the modular is like at the higher end. So modular implies that essentially it is everything that you would get on a site built home. It just happens to show up in pieces. So that's kind of the range, at least how I look at it. I mean, some people may say, well, you're technically a manufactured home, which we are. I don't like to use that term because I think there's like a little bit of the quality connotation's not quite there. So for us, we view our product as it's indistinguishable from a site built home. Just happen to show up in a day.
Got it. And then what is like the finished product then? Like walk us through like square footage, type of finishes. Just, is there, just put it on a slab. Like what is it, like a good like example that would highlight, hey, this is what we build?
So our standard product, what we call our starter home, is a 1,730 square feet home. It's a 3-bedroom. We have kind of 3 ranges. We have a 3-bed, our starts at a 3-bed, 1.5 bath. And then we go all the way up to like a market rate product, which is a 3-bed, 2.5 bath. And they're all kind of on the same chassis, if you will. So the 3-bed, 1.5 bath, you end up with slightly larger bedrooms, but you don't get the sort of the benefits of the master. I guess now they call it a primary bath. So, the benefits of a master bath or whatever. And then, other than that, they're all the same. And the goal is to truly make it indistinguishable from a site built home. If we use standard building product, I guess this is really important. Also, people always get confused. So we work with structural grade metal studs. So the stuff that we build with, you could literally build a 15-story building out of the material. We use same drywall that goes into a site-built home. We use the same exterior drywall. We use insulation. We use everything is copper plumbing, PVC drains, copper wiring, all in electrical conduit. It's actually better though, because one of the things that we've been really trying to do is really focus on like a green component. So we have our walls exceed insulation requirements on our walls. We exceed insulation requirements in the ceiling. We also have because of the way our product is built, we have a continuous layer of rigid insulation board. So the house, by doing that, you get the standard insulation that you would get in the wall, plus you get the continuous layer of rigid insulation really helps seal the house. So, between those two things, and then we do an R50 in the roof. So the house is very comfortable. And then we buy our windows from ClimateGuard. I've been buying windows from ClimateGuard for decades. It's a
right on Pulaski,
company. Yeah. And this isn't a pitch for them. I've been buying windows from them, I think, for 25 years, 30 years. They just make a really nice product, and it's local, and their pricing is really solid.
I use them too. We gotta have them sponsored now. That's 2 call outs. We gotta hit these guys up.
Two questions. Are these all being built on slabs? And so you finish up a project 2 weeks after, call it maybe an open house type time period. Like if someone walks in, could they even tell that this is built in X amount of pieces versus traditional construction?
No. The goal is that I have a running joke. When the house is completely done, obviously when it's delivered, of course you could tell it showed up in pieces because the modules are in pieces and then there's seams. But when it's done and the keys are handed over, the goal is like I have a running joke that I'll give anybody $100 if they can figure out where the seams are. So that's truly like the first one we did for TRP, I had like their whole executive board walk through and I put $100, not even a joke, I put $100 on the table and I said, anybody can have this if you guys can identify where the seams are in the house. And of course, nobody took it. So it was pretty cool.
So let's talk about that first project real quick though. Some learning things, right? Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't 100% smooth. What's something you've learned from that first project that you've now, that has evolved your business to the next one?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the big thing I learned on that project, so our modules originally went lengthwise. So one thing that I think distinguishes Connex from a lot of other companies is that because that woman who dropped this massive code book on the table taught us is that we had to make sure that our product could be moved around the city. And so the biggest thing that a lot of modular builders are, if you look, most of them try to build the biggest module they possibly can. And so a typical modular builder will build modules that are 12 to 14 feet wide, and they could be 30 to 40 feet long. Well, the problem is in our first home, our modules were 8.5 feet wide, and we had 4 modules per floor, 8.5 feet wide. And I believe they were one was 25 feet long. And the other one, I think, was 35 feet long or 30 feet long. So one of the first things we learned, and our structural engineer who we work with is amazing. Although I don't know if I can actually give his name out at the moment, because I think he has to kind of keep a low profile, but he's awesome. The first thing we did is we rotated our modules 90 degrees. So our first home was only 17.5 feet wide, because you have 8.5 and 8.5, because that's standard, where that came from, the standard transport width of a semi. It's 8.5 feet wide. So the first thing we did was we rotated our modules 90 degrees. So now our modules run the width of the lot, and we stack them like front to back. And so that allowed us to now make a home. That was the biggest complaint that we had, was people were like, well, it's really cool, but it's only 17.5 feet wide. I want 19 feet because every other builder can do 19 feet. So the first thing we did, and back to Mark's question, we're a perimeter grade foundation. So we could do a basement if somebody wanted it. And then we do a mud slab for rodent control. We just include that. It's not a requirement. City doesn't require it. Nobody asks for it, but we believe that, we're trying to provide a high quality product, and we don't want anyone ever to call and say they got rats in their yard. So, and then essentially that was like the biggest learning we got from the first one, is by rotating the modules, we were able to actually make, so now we can go 17.5, our 2 standard sizes are 17.5 and 19 foot wide. So
that's awesome. So where are you building these? Like, where it sounds like the cost to build is going to be roughly the same. You know, the land is going to be different depending on which Chicago neighborhood you are in.
Right.
So where is the sweet spot for you where, you know, the land price versus the ARV on the back end that you sell it for, where you can actually be profitable?
So we just provide the product. So what I like to tell people is, you give me a lot, you give me a survey, and you give me money, and we give you a house. So part of what that also is what distinguishes us a little bit from other modular companies. So a typical modular company, you call them up and you say, hey, I have a lot. They'll say, great, here's a set of instructions. Make sure the site has, you know, the foundation is up to XYZ specs. Make sure your water has been brought here. Make sure your power is here. We need this much space. We need all these different parameters. We'll deliver a house for you, and then you just finish it. So that requires a lot more coordination for a buyer, right? Like they have to go find their own GC. They have to get all the site stuff done. So because of my background with Paul, we wanted to be like a one-stop shop, especially for affordable housing, right? So we actually do, at least currently in our current state, we do everything. So we manage the site work, we manage the foundation work, we manage the landscaping, the fencing. So it's like a package. And so we're doing that because it's affordable, because we want to be able to offer a product that people can just, let the developers be the developer, let them do what they're good at, and let us just build homes, which is what we're really, that's what we love doing. That's what we like doing. But to your comment though, Tom, from a pricing standpoint, I think initially people were like, oh, it's modular, it must be cheaper. And my only comment is like, why? Cost of a 2x4 is the same as for you, it is for me. So, that's not where the savings is. The savings is really the speed to market.
Got it. And then, so if an end user is coming to you, and maybe you don't have this answer, but I'm just thinking, like, one, how do they think of this? How do they find you? Like, it seems like a great option. I've never heard of it. Like, how are they doing that? And do you know, like, how are they financing this? Because assuming it's affordable housing, they're not just putting, $300K down cash.
So that's a good question. So right now we're primarily business to business. So we don't currently in our current state, we don't sell to the end user at the moment. How do they find us? That's a good question. It's really funny. When I started Connect, I have a buddy of mine who runs Out Cold Marketing. He's awesome. This guy's phenomenal. And I asked him, I'm like, do you think I can start a business with no social media presence? And he was like, no, man. He's like, you'll never be able to start a business with no social media presence. We have virtually zero social media presence. I got an Instagram page. I barely update it.
What a great guest to have on. He'll help promote this podcast.
I didn't even think about that. Sorry. I got a LinkedIn page, so I'll make sure I put this on LinkedIn. How's that? Right. Which I guess is social media. But I'm a believer. I come from the opinion, if your product is cool, and it is not even if it's cool, if it's well done and it's well made and you're doing it for the right reasons, people will find it. And I feel like that has been consistent. Has been consistent throughout my career. That's consistent with other people that I know. I think today, and obviously I'm not going to go on a social media rant. I think today, like, people are so infatuated with like the marketing and like how cool it is and whatever, but like, does it really do what it's supposed to do? There's a modular company that I'm not going to name names, who I don't know where they are. They're somewhere out in the western part of the country. They have been marketing for years, and they are doing capital raises, all these things. All they have is digital images. And I think they've been raising a shitload of money. I don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know if they've even built anything, but it's all marketing. And it's like marketing. And then you're like, well, what are you building? And they're like, oh, we'll get there. And so I'm a believer, like, put up or shut up kind of guy. So I have no idea how I just went off on that tangent. I apologize.
No, we're talking about how people find you.
Like, tell us how great your product is, and you don't need all that. We got it.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, I think we connected with TRP. TRP introduced us to LCDC. LCDC was Lawndale Christian Development Court. They're awesome. We are so happy. It means a huge amount to be working with these community groups. I mean, they are really trying to make a difference, and it means so much. And then I connected with Structured Development, which is a large development project we're doing over at Harris San Francisco. And Mike Drew was willing to take a leap of faith, and he's actually been a huge. Mike's done way more marketing for us than I've done for us, and he's singing our praises all over the place. He's been very encouraging, and he's actually given me a lot of advice. And to tell you the truth, Tom, I don't know how people find us. Judy gave you my name. I had a conversation today with a county out in the western part of the state that called us looking to do some stuff. I think, like I said, if you do a good job and people are impressed with it, then they'll give your name out to other people.
Well, this things that come in my mind as I'm listening to it. I've thought these things like how do you build smaller houses on these lots that are really cheap in these neighborhoods that maybe have a lot of vacant lots. You're not the first person to really think of this. Like a lot of people have, and I think you probably got a lot of that pushback when you're thinking about bringing this idea somewhere else. So like people are like, how are you gonna get it done? You're not gonna get it done. Like what were some of the pushbacks? Like I think about aldermen. Like were aldermen welcoming to have you in here, or was it just a group of people you're involved in that were able to push it through all that? Kind of tell us about it just seems. It's tough to understand how you're the first guy to get this done. Like it makes so much sense what you're doing.
It sounds like such a simple answer to a question that hasn't been done yet. Right? Like
I don't have. It's funny. I'm convinced that the internet has turned the world into. Mark. I'll answer you. I swear. I'm convinced though that the internet has made people think. I read an article somewhere, I think it was the Wall Street Journal or New York Times. It was a couple years ago that the iPhone, or the whatever you want to call it, the smartphone has convinced everybody that they're intelligent because everyone's walking around with Google in their pocket. And, I think it's a matter of just, own your shit, do it. I got a good friend of mine. This I will, I don't mean to keep plugging people. I talk to a lot of people. I have a good friend. Should I stop plugging people? I'm not trying to.
No, throw them out there. People want to know the community.
So, Eric Williams, who's the owner of 𝗏𝘁𝗃, is a guy that I'm very good friends with. He's a super amazing chef. If you've ever been to 𝗏𝘁𝗃, go. Honestly, it's a phenomenal restaurant in Hyde Park. And I've known Eric for many years, and I was talking about this idea. And he literally said to me, what the fuck is wrong with you? Just do it. And I'm like, Eric, come on, man. And he literally looks around and who's going to come to my rescue? And he's like, just fucking do it. What are you waiting for? And I think that's a lot of things in life. I think people you get to the line and you're like, it's too much work. And so I know a lot of people, the building department, I know sometimes doesn't get the best reputation. They're awesome. They really have been. And I'm not just saying that to plug the building department or give them fodder. They were supportive. They were encouraging. You know what they wanted, Mark? When I talk to people, they want you to follow the rules. So all that's the biggest thing. I talk to builders all the time. I know a lot of builders. I talk to a lot of builders, developers. Oh, they're asking me to do this. Why the hell they ask me to do that? And it's like, well, what's the code say? Well, I don't need, they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, what's the code say? So follow the code and you won't have a problem. And that is really when you start talking to the inspectors, when you start talking to people that, on the 9th floor, they just want you to follow the rules. They're not trying to hit you up. They're not trying to make your life difficult. It's follow the rules. And so I think that's what a lot of it comes down to in the building community is that, people trying to find ways to cut corners. And I think that there's some ways you can cut corners that are legit. There's other ways that follow the rules.
Yeah, that's where they get difficult. That's usually you kind of summed up every conversation I've ever had with people about getting mad about getting a stop work order or not. They didn't follow something and they got caught, or they didn't do something and they got called out on, and they made the inspector's life difficult, and now here they are. So I think what you say has in that speech there has a lot of merit. So
yeah, and the inspectors are they're not unreasonable. I admit I've been in this business for almost 30 years. I've had some not great interactions with inspectors, but if I can really look inward on myself, 99% of my interactions where it was a negative was kind of my own doing. Right. So,
yep.
Own your shit.
Josh, we wanted to get a building inspector on here to stand up for the building department. Judy did a good job. But if you ever got any inspectors that'd be interested, refer them our way. We'd love to interview them.
I'm happy to ask. I don't mind. I've had some of the inspectors, as I said, I've had some very not positive experiences, but I've had a lot of good ones too. And I think a lot of these guys are just trying to do their job, you know?
Yep. So the end product that you're building here, and it's funny you said, I have to say this. First thing I thought when I was kind of researching you on coming up to this was Legos. I was a big Lego kid when I was, and you mentioned the word Lego. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one that saw that. And then connects, of course. But the end product, is this solely owner occupied families? Are you doing any multi-units? Is there any investors you're working with that you're building 2 flats for? I mean, talk to me about kind of, or is there opportunity there?
So right now we have we're primarily business to business. So the developer deals with the end user, and then our product comes with a warranty. And then if we have a warranty issue, like a standard builder, we obviously will take care of it. We try to have 8 to 10 unit order minimum, just because it's complicated to deal with. You know, someone who calls up and says, you know, excuse me, I want 1 or 2. It's a little complicated. Because there's the decent amount. I mean, Mark, you clearly understand there's a decent amount of paperwork and stuff that goes into any project. So we try to keep it to a larger order. And most of our orders are primarily scattered sites. So that's what Connects was really designed for. It was designed out of the gate to be an urban infill product to go into neighborhoods that really needed housing, where it's not so easy to build stuff, either for site security. Primarily site security. Guys don't want to go work there. You can't get labor there. It's, you know, too complicated, all these things. And so, you know, we're willing to work with non-for-profit. We work with market rate developers. And then we also have an ARO. If you guys are familiar with the ARO, I don't know if you guys are, I'm assuming you must be familiar with the ARO component. We work with those developers, also have an ARO satisfier need as well.
Got it. Josh, you've mentioned some of the companies out West. What's unique about doing this in Chicago? Like, is our market easier, harder? Like, is there anything about Chicago specifically where this makes it?
Guard dog in the background. Sorry. What makes Chicago unique? Well, I got to think about that one. I mean, look, Chicago is the 2nd or 3rd largest city in the country, depending on who you talk to. The majority of the lots, as Mark was referencing, Legos, like they're rectangles. So I think that's what makes it helpful. I don't know, Tom, that's a good question. I think the reason why modular hasn't taken off or has been slow to take off is if you look at styles, so architectural styles, building styles, design, and even like fashion, it tends to come in from the coast into the center of the country, right? That's something that's been going on for a long time. And so I think the reason why modular has not taken off in the Midwest as much as it has on the coast is there hasn't been as much of a need. And I think people in the Midwest are very traditional, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's just been slow to change. And I mean, for example, in San Francisco, modular is huge because the cost of doing anything in San Francisco costs like, you know, an arm and a leg and whatever else has to come with it. So that's the big reason. And then I know in the upper West, I think modular started to take off because it's harder to build in some of these places. You have like rain conditions, whatever. So getting material into some of the areas outside of Portland and Washington, you know, that's my guess. I don't know for a fact. And then you're starting to see modular cut down in Texas. I know there's a couple of plants. I believe there's a company out of New York that's starting to do it. There are manufactured home builders in the Midwest. So like, I don't want to say that we're like the only option, but our product is designed really for Chicago, like meaning all the code requirements, fire ratings, all that stuff. So we're really designed for an urban environment size wise.
Got it. That makes sense. All right. So another question, we had 𝗬𝘁𝗶𝗵𝗵 on episode 110, and he talked a lot about in the next 10 years, 3D printing is really going to change how we build homes. Is that something that's on your radar? Is that something that you've given any thought to, or that would affect this business that you're putting together?
Yeah, I saw actually, have you seen the Apple TV show? What is it, Homes or something like that? I can't think of what it's called. There was a really cool, if you guys haven't seen that, you should check it out. There's like these like 10 or 15 home episodes about all like these really unique homes. And so one of the episodes is about 3D printed homes. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool to watch but I was still sort of scratching my head a little bit because it's my understanding that it's a cementitious based product. So I guess what I'm trying to go at is I think that it kind of depends on where you're building, right? It depends on where you're building, what your medium that you're using to build with, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes with it, right? So shipping container homes are a prime example. So we started talking about shipping containers at the beginning. So if you go down to, I've traveled down to Latin America and down to Mexico, you see, and Texas, anywhere that it's warm, shipping containers make a ton of sense because you don't need like a ton of insulation. There's a lot easier, more things you can do when the environment's warm. The minute you deal with this environment that we have in this part of the country, it becomes a lot more complicated. And you saw that with that giant freeze they had down in Texas. I mean, I am sure Texas is completely revamping their building codes after that massive freeze that they had down there. That was last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know for a fact, but I would assume that some building code is revamping their insulation requirements down in Texas, because I'm sure they had a boatload of freezing issues. And so I think the 3D printing is really cool. And I am definitely someone who's a proponent of new technology. I want to see how it really becomes something here, because it's, the way they make it, it's my understanding, it's like a thing that like the robot that like goes in a circle and like literally like makes like stacks. And so stacks of whatever medium or material they're using. So, I mean, I think that really comes into play is like where you have like true need for like low income housing. Like I think like Native American reservations or really poverty stricken areas where like they really need housing really badly, and something is better than nothing.
Got it.
Are you seeing, you're the first to market, right? And are you seeing other competitors try to duplicate kind of what you're doing here in Chicago?
Am I allowed to answer that question? Not yet. I'm sure there's going to be others. I know Tim Swanson, who was a gentleman, one of the former guys at Skender. I know he's trying to get something off the ground. Tim's a talented guy. Look, even if I was at complete capacity, like top capacity, there is such a need for housing in and around Chicago. We'd be busy for decades before we even put a dent in it. I mean, I have no doubt that someone else will be coming to market, and I know no doubt there's a decent amount of product to go around. Or I should say, need for product.
Got it. Josh, we're wrapping up here. Anything else you want to add? Anything we didn't cover or that we should have asked you?
Oh, I don't know. Felt like I was talking so much. I was expecting you guys to talk more. I felt like I was spending the whole time talking.
We let you roll, man.
I really appreciate being on the show. No, we're really excited. I think I think one of the coolest things that I've learned about working with Connects and working with the groups, it is really, I don't know, I would encourage both of you guys. I don't know if you guys get a chance to get over to the south side and the west side of the city. I think a lot of people, I can say this for most of my adult life, I never left like the, probably 6 square miles of the north side. And in the last few years, I have been in more neighborhoods in the city than I've ever been in the entire rest of my life. And it is really cool. It's really cool to get a chance to interact with people of all different backgrounds, race, religion, financial elevations. It's really cool. And I think that what Connects is about, and what we've seen, is just the power of people. And I still believe in that. And I'm not trying to sound corny. And I realize maybe I'm coming off corny, but that's the best part.
There's your marketing right there. Connects. Like it's like,
oh, there we go. Boom.
Oh, you guys were asking where the name came. It's like, it came from like Connects, connections, people, communities, it all kind of serious. And then in all seriousness, we got guys from all different backgrounds. One of our first guys we hired, who unfortunately doesn't work with us anymore, but it was really cool. Like we gave him a job and the guy literally burst into tears. He was so happy just to have a job. And it was like, I've never felt so good in my life in that moment, giving this guy a job. And I mean, that's what this is about. And so I would make a plug. We are definitely looking to hire people. So if anyone's looking for work or knows anyone looking for work, it's a really cool environment. We work all year long, not 24/7, but we work 40 hours a week. Not 24/7. We work 40 hours a week though, and it's guaranteed work. So what makes us kind of different than another construction company is that it's raining, snowing, freezing. We're still working. My guys, when it was 15 below or whatever, 20 below or whatever, it was a couple weeks ago, everyone was inside working, wearing t-shirts, doing exactly what they would do on a regular job site. So it's actually really cool.
Awesome. Good stuff. Going back to the communities too. I completely agree with you. It's shocking to me that I've lived through my whole life and it took me 30 something years to find Pullman, and like, it's like, whoa, it's right here.
And it's really neat. And that's also like, when we did the house in Lawndale, I mean, I've talked to people, they're like, oh my gosh, you're working on Lawndale. Like, how's that even safe? Like, do you feel like, okay, the community was amazing. Like, people were driving by, they're honking, they're cheering. The neighbor came out. She was so excited to have a brand new home next to her. I mean, it's really cool. It's cool to see the community get involved. The project we're working on Harrison Road, there's a whole minority ownership interest with a local developer. These guys are super nice to deal with. They're super excited about our product. They're trying to figure out how we can get more. And they're trying to find us guys from the community, right? So part of what we're trying to do is really find either people for our shop. We want people from the community working in our shop, or if we're delivering, to try to get local subcontractors to help.
Got it. Good stuff. All right, we're going to our wrap-up round. And today's wrap-up round is brought to you by Renovo Financial, our friends over there for all your investor lending needs. And if you'd like to sponsor a wrap-up round, please reach out to us. So Josh, you ready for this? We're going to fire off some questions.
All right, I'm ready.
What is your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this while so many other people? And you kind of answered this already.
Our competitive advantage, we are the first and only modular company here in the city of Chicago. So we're the only ones doing it. So first to market. I guess does that answer the question? Is that a fair statement?
I thought you were going to say, I just said, fucking did it.
I don't know that's a competitive advantage. That's just a slogan I want to stick up on my wall.
Yeah, let's sell some t-shirts. All right. What is one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first investment property here in Chicago?
Oh, that's a tough one after doing this for so many long. Make sure it actually will make money. I think a lot of people buy an investment property, and I heard Mark's story at the beginning. I think people they think it's just like this simple, easy thing. They're just going to buy it and they'll just like make money like instantly. And I think do your research, figure out what you want, figure out what you need, do your research, own your shit.
There you go.
All right. What do you do for fun, Josh?
I got a motorcycle. So if it's warm out, I'm on my motorcycle. I am not that's tools and motorcycles. That's how I get my manly. That's what I like to say. Not a golf guy.
Are you still out in Portage Park, or did you move to the burbs?
No, I live in the north side of the city. Gotcha. So I was never in Portage Park. We managed a building out in Portage Park. I lived in the burbs when I was a kid, and now I live on the north side of the city.
All right, and don't say anything bad about Portage Park. You're upset. Yours truly.
No. Lots of good neighborhoods in the city.
So, give us either a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you would recommend to our listeners.
I'm reading I got to look up what the name of the book is. You guys are putting me on the spot here. I should be prepared for this. I'm reading an amazing book about the Toyota way, which is the difference that I can give you the name of the book. Give me one second. I got to look what that's actually called. The story about Toyota, the machine that changed the world. That's the name of the book. So it's a story about Toyota versus Ford, and how Henry Ford created mass production, and then Toyota took it into lean production. And that's something that we're trying to work on and incorporate into Connects lean production.
Awesome. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend to other investors as a quality resource, in addition to everyone else you've voluntarily gave already.
Besides the two amazing guys on this podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
So should it be, Mark, is it someone in the real estate world?
Anyone that can be of value to someone in the real estate world.
Oh, you know what? Jim Darrow with Essex is an awesome guy. Essex is a phenomenal based company. Jim will be really excited to let him know that I told him to say this. Jim's a super good guy. Essex has been around for a while, and they are definitely well established in the city of Chicago. And I think they really know what they're talking about. Mark, you know Jim?
I do not.
No, Mark, you know him?
I do not know. I didn't catch the name there.
Oh, Jim Darrow. Jim.
My dogs are going crazy here, and I'm trying.
That's all right. That's all right. No, Jim's a good guy. He's with Essex. He definitely knows what's going on. I think when it comes to Chicago real estate, Essex I think has definitely been well established.
Yeah, no, we've had them on there. Yep, we've had the company. We had a few people on there on the show.
So, Josh, thank you so much. You've provided a ton of value to our listeners. Is there any way they can learn more about you? I know you don't have a big social presence, but any way they can learn about you? And is there any way they can provide value to you?
ConnexMonjoConstruction.com if they want to get more information about Connex. Definitely, if anyone knows anyone that's looking for work, like I said, we're always looking to hire quality guys. Also, subcontractors that are working local. We're always trying to work with local subcontractors in the neighborhoods where we're working. So it's really important for us.
Good stuff.
And if you want, I will make you a promise, Tom. I will contact some couple of people at the city and see if I can get them on your podcast for you if you like.
All right. Mark and I will get all our stop work orders under control and we'll be good to go.
I can't promise anything with stop work orders.
I'll be happy if you tag us on your LinkedIn page. Like that'll make me happy.
That I'd be happy to do. Of course.
We know it was painful for you to do. We'll be happy with that.
All right.
We got a Facebook page somewhere.
All right. There we go. So we wrap up with our Chicago fact. And Mark, I apologize in advance. This is a pure guessing one, but I thought it was a good one. So you got a 25% chance here. We'll give you multiple choice. And then Josh will give you a shot as well.
All right.
And it's according to Wikipedia, so it's obviously very accurate. How many sister cities does Chicago have? And your options are, go ahead.
I was going to say now or before the Ukrainian war, because I feel like once the war
pre-Ukrainian war, we're pre there. So how many sister cities does Chicago? Wait, by the way, did you know the answer? And it would be one off.
Well, I think actually there was a city in Russia that I heard that they like nixed because of the Ukrainian war going on.
So I have to adjust this answer, but I'm going, this is like a February type of thing. Is it A6, B15, C28, or D73?
I was going to go with B6.
Oh,
just to clarify your answer, it's A6, B15.
Oh, A6.
All right. You want to go with?
I think I was going to go with either A or B. It's got to be one or the other. I realize I got to pick one, so I'll pick B just to mark the.
According to Wikipedia, guys, it's C, 28.
Seriously?
28 sister cities. Maybe it's 27 now.
Well,
I always thought a sister city had to have the same name. I didn't realize it could be.
What? Where else is there a Chicago in the world?
That's what I was saying. Like I thought this was going to be a trick question.
Hey man, this is according to Wikipedia.
I totally thought I was getting set up.
So I'm sorry, Mark. We'll get you an easier one next time. We'll get one that won't require multiple choice.
That question sounds like you didn't have one prepared for this episode. You just Googled something up real fast. But
I did that before the episode, but yes, at 2:45, that's what happened.
I was with your question about it. I was somewhere recently and someone asked me, they're like, is it true that I was skiing last week, and on the ski lift, I was sitting next to a kid, and I don't remember where the kid was from, but she's like, where are you from? I'm like, Chicago. And she looks at me, she goes, is it true that they dye the river green? And I was like, it's true. It was really funny that like she was curious about that. So random Chicago thing.
Just to be clear, sister city is a relationship. It's not named after Chicago. I'm looking at it. There's 29 now. So we actually gained one. And the first one is Accra, Ghana. And the next one is in Jordan. And then Athens, Greece is a sister city.
Gotcha.
So it was a misleading question.
Well, one more thing, the people that dye the river green, they actually have a soda company as well too. We had Shamrock.
Oh, really?
Homemade. Yeah. It's called Green River Soda. So we have that at our house every year.
Is it good?
Yeah.
What kind of soda?
Anything with ice cream in it, it's good to me. So I'm in. But all right, Josh.
Really cool. I never knew that.
Yeah. We'll send you a bottle. Josh, thank you very much for coming on here. It's been awesome. It was a very fun show. So I'm happy you came on here. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, our number one thing downloaded on our website is the house hacking calculator. So if anyone new to our show that hasn't listened to it, I know I've heard a lot of success stories of people using that calculator and purchasing their first property. So go to our website, straightupchicagoinvestor.com, and download our house hacking calculator. It's a pretty cool tool that we got up there for everybody.
Thank you to Alex Farrell for putting that together with us.
Yes, Alex Farrell for sure. Josh, thank you again. Tom, thank you. And everyone listening, thank you. Make sure you subscribe. If you're listening to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen, please make sure you subscribe to us. Talk to you soon, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks
for having me on, guys. Take care, guys.